Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we'll move on to chapter 2. Okay, for last week we have discussed the chapter 1, computer system overview. So we review back the basic element of computer system following the von Neumann machine and explain the step taken by a processor to execute, which is fetch and execute, fetch and execute. Okay, so step by step, the instruction and then the data, it will modify the data. Okay. And then understand the concept of interrupts and how and why a processor use interrupt, because the I/O is slow, so you don't want what's called the CPU is unutilized or idle because of the waiting for the I/O. So you just use the interrupt, let the I/O do their processing. When it finished, then it can interrupt the processor to continue the process. Okay, the leftover process. And it can happen because the processors save the state of the previous condition before it attend to the I/O operation. Okay. Then list and describe the level of typical computer memory hierarchy. So we have the pyramids. Okay, the pyramids, in essence, when you go up, when it will be faster but smaller. Okay, vice versa. Okay, so on the top we have the registered, we have the L1, L2, L3 cache, and then main memory. Okay, and on the middle we have the what you call the SDD and HDD. Okay, so we have a solid state drive, SSD, SDD, and CD-ROM, and so on. And the last one, we have the backup tape. Okay. Okay, and multi-person, multi-core organization, we have discussed this one as well. So if you have multi-processor, multi-core, not only you can do interleaving, but you can do overlapping. So it means that you can run two programs at the same time, two process at the same time, okay? Or two threads at the same time, depends on the OS, can be thread level, process level, and so on, okay? And discuss the concept of locality. And yeah, so the locality, the essence is most probably you will need the data closer in time and closer in space, so that you can use the concept of locality to read block of data instead of one by one data. You load it into the cache so that it will be the data will be read from the cache, so then it will be faster. Okay, because the cache is faster than memory is faster than the hard drive, for example. Okay. Okay. In this chapter 2, we'll do the operating system overview. Okay. So the first one is the key objective and function of an OS. There are three main objectives. So we'll learn that and discuss the evolution of OS, serial processing, simple based system, multi-program based system, and time sharing system. Okay. And then number 3 is just the hints for the next chapter. Actually, we'll discuss more. For example, process will be on chapter 3, and thread will be on chapter 4. Memory management will be on chapter 7 and 8. Okay. Information protection and security will be on chapter 11. Scheduling and resource management will be on chapter 9 and 10, inshallah. Okay. And then number 4 is distinguish between microkernel versus monolithic kernel, or what is the difference? Okay, and then multi-threading, multi-programming versus multi-processing. And the last one on learning outcome for chapter 2 is the discussion on fault tolerant system. So we can see means that is there any computer that does not need to be reboot? Okay, you can, I think in the term part of the asynchronous activities, you can find which computer has never been reboot for, I'm not sure, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Okay. Never been turned off, never been turned off, never been reboot, and so on. Okay, so we have the system availability. So we'll see on the table later on what does it mean by high availability and low availability. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so yeah, so we go to yeah, so the chapter 2 is operating system overview. Okay, so we'll discuss on chapter on various operating system, and on the last page on this materials. Okay, you'll have introduction to Windows, Unix, Linux, and Android. Okay, and as well as Mac OS. Okay, you can just a bit introduction so you can see you can see the difference. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. So yeah, so this is we have discussed earlier. Okay. And yeah, so this one, yeah, this one is optional. Please read this one. Okay, so at the end of the chapter, you'll see this one: Microsoft Windows, Unix, modern Unix system, Linux, and Android. Okay, so what is an OS? An OS is a program. So you can see here, for example, Linux maybe millions lines of code. The same thing with Windows kernel. Okay, because of the versatility, you can compile to any hardware. Okay, so normally they use C. Okay, for the OS implementation. Okay, but currently they're also starting to use Rust. Okay, at least the device driver, as I mentioned last week. Uh, for the component of the OS, so that because it guarantees security. Okay, then the OS also provide an interface between application and hardware. You have so many hardware, okay, but you need also the driver and as well as an OS to manage the resources, okay, to manage the hardware. So we have three main objective of an OS. Okay, this is the first learning outcome: convenience, so that you can see here the user when they use the OS, they feel convenience. It's easy to copy paste. It's easy to edit, do some work, and so on. Okay, you can use multiple monitors. You can use USB that you attach, USB device. So for convenience, okay, and as well as efficiencies. Okay, especially if you can do multitasking, you can do Microsoft Word and open Chrome, for example, to see you would do some research. Okay, so it will be also more efficient, and as well as whenever you have the OS, then you can manage the resources properly. Okay, and then the last one will be ability to evolve. Okay, so you have new hardware coming in. The processors has new architecture, big little architecture, for example, for Intel 12 Gen. Okay, so the processor need to catch up. Sorry, the OS need to catch up with the evolution. Okay. Okay, so this is the computer hardware and software structure. As you can see, where's the OS? So the OS is in here. Okay, the OS so provide the interface between the hardware and the user. So the user will be here. Okay, and then we have the execution hardware here. Okay, and then of course you need to have device driver and system interconnect bus. Remember that the von Neumann machine has a CPU and then memory. Okay, and then I/O all connected with the interconnection bus here. Okay, so you can access the I/O. CPU can access the I/O through the interconnection bus. Okay. Then you have memory translation as well. Okay, especially if you are using the virtual memory, so you need to translate between the what you call the RAM and the virtual memory on your hard drive. Okay, and this is I/O device and networking. For example, connect USB and so on. So in here, it will be instruction set architecture, and in here it will be application binary interface because you have the library, okay, connected to the operating system. Okay, the library also can connect directly. Okay, you can create a program that connect directly to the hardware, but you might need special permission from the OS. Okay, because you are accessing directly the hardware. Okay, otherwise you have some overhead here. Okay, go to operating system and go to libraries, and then you have application and programming interface. If you have the application program here to interface with the hardware. So in essence, you can see the function of OS is the interface between the software and the hardware, even the software itself, the libraries or application program, and also the hardware. Okay, and this one is transparent to us. Okay, we don't code directly to the hardware. Normally, we go through operating system because it's easier to compile later on when you move, when you are creating using one language, for example, or you are creating using one system, then you need to remodify later on to another system. Okay, if we using the OS, then we can use the same code, the upper code here, okay, and then recompile to other operating system, then it can run. Okay, your program can run. Okay, the operating system service, including program development, when you want to create using a Visual Studio, for example, or just normal Notepad and create a C program, Rust program. So this is for program development, creating its own programs. Okay, including device driver, okay, and other libraries. Execute the programs with double click normally, okay, or one click, Okay, then you can open the Microsoft Word, Chrome, PowerPoint, and so on. Access IO device. When you plug in your USB, for example, it automatically load as another drive, okay, in your Explorer. Okay, control access to files. Some file are have administration privilege only, so the normal user cannot access that one. So, for example, the in Windows you have C Windows, okay, that you cannot delete. Okay, the normal user cannot delete, okay, with this content or the core of the OS. Okay, system access, error detection and response, and as well as accounting, how long the program has been used, and how many memory they use, and the CPU usage, and so on. Okay, so this is the key interface, ISA from OS to the hardware, ABI from the library to the hardware, and API from the user program to the hardware. So the role of an OS is a set of resources for the movement, storage, and processing of data, and the OS is responsible for managing this OS. Okay, so this is similar like a software. Okay, so you have a program. First, you run the OS, and then any other program will depend on the icon. You can click and so on. Okay, you can open Chrome, you can open Mozilla, and so on, and any other software that you need. Okay. Okay, so this is operating system as resource manager. So you have operating system software. You have programs and data. This is the memory. Okay, you have I/O controller. Then you hit this one is you have processor. Okay, the storage will store the OS itself, the programs, and the data. Okay, the IO device you have printers and so on. So the OS will manage all the resources. Okay, and then to allocate wisely. Okay, it can depend on the priority or can depend on round robin. Okay, equal distribution. Okay, why we need the evolution? Because of the hardware upgrades. Okay, if you upgrade some hardware, you change the graphic card, for example, or you insert new device into your USB, or you increase the memory, then the OS need to evolve. Okay, new type of hardware, new USB, new type of connection, new type of PCIe device, and so on. New service if you want to install some service, or most of the time it will be fixed. Okay, the zero fix. So the OS need to evolve over time. Okay, now the learning outcome number 2, which is the evolution operating system. Okay, I'll try to explain in one page here. So you have serial processing. Okay, so the first one, simple batch system, multi-program batch system, time sharing system. Okay, so on serial processing, what happens is at that time, at the earliest, I think 1950 or 60, the user need to book the time. Okay, so for example, you have 10, book the time. I'm booking the computer time from 10 into 11. Okay, and B, 11 until let's say 2 hours. Okay, and C, maybe just half an hour. Okay, 13. 30. So this is the booking time. Okay, they need to stack their program using the punch card. Okay, and then they can only use it on the specific pre-booking time. Okay, but for let's say the example actual this is booking. So program A nicely finished by 10:59. Okay, so just wastage of 1 minute only. Okay. And let's say here B, the actual one, actually it requires 11 until 13:05. Okay, 11 until 13:05. So this is, you have overtime here. So you need to cancel all. Okay, because by 13:00, you need to stop. Okay, so you can see the idea here. And then this one, for example, it's even faster. So you have here 13 just requires 10 minutes, for example. So you have, but still you have 20 minutes wastage. In this case, will be 2 hours wastage. So the B need to book again. Okay, maybe B need to book again the next day, maybe 10 to 10 to 12:30. Okay, just to have some overhead. So you can see here either you're overbooking or underbooking. Okay, so this is the serial processing. Okay, so Then we have come into the simple batch system. So what you need to do, you have the batch. Now you have the monitor, the batch. So on the OS you have, sorry, this one has no OS. Okay, you just go and then run the program, more like you run it on Arduino, for example. Okay, just some loader and then load the program. But for the simple batch system, you have another program. This is the OS. Okay, so if you have 64 megabyte, for example, this one is the batch system. So the idea is this is to schedule, okay, to queue the system. So you queue it, the same thing, A, B, C. There's no wastage because 10, 00, 10:59, it will stop. Okay, then here it will run from 10, sorry, 10, yeah, 10:59, quickly 10:59 until 13:04 directly. Okay, and here will be 13:04 until 13:14. So you can see there's no wastage. Okay, but what is the drawback in here? Okay, what is the drawback here? Okay, so if you plot this one, it looks like this. A, okay, then this A, B, C, you go to resident monitors, like a program monitor here. So you go to here to decide which one next, then B, again you go here again to decide which one next, and C. Okay, then finish. Okay, it will idle here. Okay, so the first one, it will use some CPU. Okay, that's the first one because it need to decide which one will go next. Second one is this one. Okay, it will occupy some memory. Okay, so so now you can have only up to 48, right? 48. No, yeah, you have 64 minus 8. Yeah, so 56 megabyte only for your program. Okay, so you cannot have until 64 because 8 is required, what you call a book for the monitor or for the OS. Okay, so this is the simple batch system. So although there's some disadvantage, but the benefit far outweigh the disadvantage. Okay, so we go along to the next one. Okay, then multi-program batch system. So the idea here is whenever you are doing some I/O, the CPU will be idle. Okay, because the I/O is take long time. Okay, the I/O will take a long time. Okay, so so that's why if you don't have multi-program batch system, okay, so you have A, B, C. Okay, A is doing I/O, it's very long here. Okay, for example here. Okay, then B can only run after that. Okay, and C after that. Okay, but if you have multi-program system, the moment it do some I/O, for example in here, okay, then the B can run. Okay, the A is there, so B can run in here. Okay, and C can run and there, and then you have some idle here. C is still waiting for the I/O to finish. Okay, but B and C now can finish earlier. Okay, then you can load another programs, run it again. Okay, run it again. Okay. So this is multi-program based system because the I/O is take longer time than the CPU processing, so that you want to maximize the CPU utilization. Okay, so then you can do multi-program. So the same thing, you have the OS to manage, but the algorithm more complex. So instead of 8 megabyte, maybe it occupies more, like 10 megabytes, 16 megabyte. Okay, so you have less and less what you call memory for your own program, but still the benefit is outweigh the risk or the disadvantage. And the last one is time sharing system. So how can we use at that time the multi-computer or supercomputer? So you use you have terminal connected to the mainframe. Okay, so you have only the input output device here, monitor and I/O. So you have user one, and then you go to another one. You have user two. Okay, you have another one, user three. So by having so many users, we are expecting that the mainframe or the computer utilization will be higher. Okay, but because at least there is some program to run on the CPU here. Okay, So then we have the time sharing system, which is sharing the time as the name implies. So go to here 1 millisecond, switch to here 1 millisecond, switch is 1 millisecond. So you have the impression that you are owning the whole mainframe because it's very fast switching. Okay, so then you can see here we need to limit the number of users. Of course, depends on the processing power of this mainframe. Okay, otherwise we'll fail the leg. Okay, you type hello, this only appear hey, for example, and the low is another 1 minute because you need to turn around first. You need to turn around here. Okay, do the round robin first for user 1, user 2, user 3 until user 100, for example. Okay, so there's a limitation on this one. Okay, but the processor utilization will be improved. Okay, so that's basically the essence of the evolution of operating system. Okay, yeah, so so this one is more details you can read. Okay, so scheduling at that time using the booking system, and early very expensive, so it's important to maximize processor utilization. And then we have simple basis using monitor. It's like the mini OS. Okay, it's like the scheduler. You schedule the next program to run. Okay, so the monitor, you have intra processing, device driver, job sequencing, job control language, and then you have user program area. So although you have occupy some of the memory, but still it is better compared to the serial processing. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so you have the special language, GCL, and yeah, so this is the desirable hardware features. Why I come here? Okay. Yeah, memory protection for monitor. So the what you call, the user cannot access, even for now. You have the user area, you have the OS area. Okay, so the user cannot access this one, otherwise it will corrupt the operating system. Okay, and timer prevent a job from monopolizing the system. So also maybe to make equals. Okay, to make justice for the other user, then you should have the timer. You should pay more, or you should book maybe at night when nobody use, and so on. Okay, and privilege instructions can only be executed by the monitors, and interrupts the provide OS flexibility in controlling user programs. Okay, so there are two modes of operations. Okay, so user mode, as I mentioned earlier, there are some OS here and then some user. So this, and the kernel mode or OS mode. Okay, so the user mode is the normal user normal program, a normal privilege, and kernel mode is the higher privilege. Okay, you can have more instruction that is only reserved for the kernel or the OS or the administrator. Okay, so there are some overhead here, of course, because you have, as I mentioned earlier, you have A, go to monitor, you have B, go to monitor. There's some overhead here, and also some memory, some process time is consumed, but it's improved the utilization of the computer. Okay, multi-program batch system. This is the details. As you can see here, read one record from file, 15 microseconds. Execute 100 instruction. You can see not one, but 100 instruction. 1 microsecond. So the processor, I think around 1 gigahertz. Okay, and write one record to file, 15 microseconds. So you can compare here. CPU utilization is only 1/31, 1/, the total here 31. So 3.2%. Okay, so that's why the I/O is very slow, okay, compared to the processor. So what we have here, we can run yeah. So this is I think unit programming. Okay, so the processor will wait until it finish and then run again, wait again, doing some I/O, and wait again. So now we can move on to multi-programming, in which if this is waiting for the I/O, then another program can run. Okay, so at the end you have a better processor utilization. You can add this one compared to the total, it will be a better processor utilization. Even if you have more program, then to have more, better processor utilization. Okay. But okay, how do you determine? Okay, how do you select that one? So the programs, your program, normally has two types here: heavy computation or computation intensive. Okay, or I/O intensive. You're more on reading the data from the hard drive. Okay, writing back the data, but the computation is very minimal. Okay, so you have here heavy computation, heavy I/O, all the duration 15 minutes, 10 minutes, memory requires, and so on. Okay, then you can see here the difference between uni-programming means that you only allow one program at a time, and multi-programming. Okay, you can allow multi-program to run at a time. You can allow the 3 program to run at a time. So you can see here the difference. Okay, this faster response time, processor use is increased here when you calculate. But memory usage also increase. Okay, because you are running more memory. So the process that is still waiting for the I/O still there on the main memory. Okay, means that if you have one big program like Adobe Photoshop, for example, then it will run out of memory, and it will start to use your virtual memory. Okay, it will be slower. Okay, carpenter use is better, elapsed time is also faster. Okay, throughput is 12 jobs per hour compared to 6 jobs per hour. Okay, yeah, so this is the utilization. You can see the time here. The time is shorter compared to the unit programming. Okay, time sharing system, as I mentioned earlier. So the processor time is shared among multiple user. Multiple user access system through terminals. Okay, the keyboard and the monitor only, and the OS interleave the execution, like do the round robin. User 1, user 2, user 3, go back to user 1, user 2, user 3, and go back to user 1, user 3, and depends on the quantum of computation. You can switch every 1 millisecond, 1 nanosecond, so it depends on the speed of your CPU, and also you want the responsiveness of the system to the user. Okay, if you want the system to be more responsive, you should have a smaller quantum. Okay, and less user. So this is the difference between batch multiprogramming and time sharing. This one will maximize processor use. This is to minimize response time, the objective. Okay, and the job control language here, and command enter the terminal, so you can have your own terminals. Okay, you can have your own program running at the same time. Okay, so let's skip this one. Yeah. Okay, the next one is on just an overview. The major achievement on operating system. So the OS are among the most complex piece of software ever developed. So major advance in development, including process on the process itself, okay, and memory management, information protection and security. Okay, this is important as well, because so you don't want to corrupt your data with or your program with the virus, with the ransomware, and so on. Okay, and scheduling and resource management, and system structure is improved. Okay, now let's see one by one as a quick review. So the process is fundamental to the structure of the operating system. Even the operating system itself has its own kernel process, okay, that do the scheduling, do some memory management, do some I/O allocations, and so on. Okay. So the process can be defined as program execution. So when you run PowerPoint like I did here, or you run the Zoom, so you have Zoom process and you have a PowerPoint process. Okay. An instance of running program, the entity that can be assigned to and execute on a processor. So if you have multiprocessor, for example, you can run, you have program A, B, C, you have 2 cores, for example. So remember that if you have 2 cores, then you not only you can do interleaving, but you can also do overlapping. So you can do overlapping like this, okay, and then the C will run on core number 1 and B will be on core number 2. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so the 3 major lines of computer development, you have multi-programming batch operations. So the process switch among the various program, and time sharing, responsive to the individual user, but be able to support many users simultaneously. Okay, and also real-time transaction system. So a number of users are entering queries or update again database, so it should be in real time. Okay, so yeah, the component of process we'll discuss more on chapter 3. Okay, and yeah, so at least you have, this is the typical process implementation, just a head up. You have the process list, so this is the process table. What does it mean? It means that the OS need to have the list on all the running process. Okay, you can see from here actually, yeah, when you run the task manager. Okay, so you can see this is the process. Okay, you can see the percent CPU, percent memory. You can sort by which one using high CPU, the Zoom meeting using high CPUs, using the which one is using the high memory, Microsoft Edge using 1.2 gigabytes. Okay, which one using the hard drive more. Okay, which one using the network. Okay, Zoom meeting is using the network, and which one is using the GPU. Zoom also use the GPU here. Okay, so you can see the list of the process in Linux. Okay, you can see here there was question on the virtual machine. Okay, I will come into that. So, but I'm using here Windows subsystem on Linux, for example. You can list down here. Okay, the process. It says the process ID, the name, okay, and so on. Okay, or you can see how many threads that you have. This is the threads. Okay, so you can see here the threads 7, 1 running, 6 sleeping, and so on. Okay, so we'll come into that on the next chapter, inshallah. Okay, then you have process list of the process. Then you have also special PID, process ID. And you have process A, you have the context or process control blocks. Okay, then you have the data program codes. So you have instruction and you have the data. Okay, you have the instruction and then you have the data. Process B also the same, similar things. Okay, then depend on which one is running. So for example, process B is running, then it need to be loaded here. Okay, need to be loaded here. Okay. Okay, the memory management has 5 principal storage managements. Okay, process isolation, you need to isolate the process. So process A cannot access process B unless it allow it's shared. It's shared the function, the data, okay, the program or the data. Okay, so but by default, A cannot access B, B cannot access A in the main memory. Okay, automatic allocation and management. So if your memory is full, for example, you need to put A into the hard drive first. Okay, so that, then after that, if memory is free again, you can load again A, but maybe it not be in the same location. So need to have automatic allocation and management. So for example, A can be moved here. It doesn't matter. Okay, as long as it occupies the same space, but just see the pointer and which on which instruction or which program code that you are in. Okay, it can run whether it's in here or in other location, because this one is relative address. So if it's 1000, then you know if it's 500, then this is 200, 2000, for example, and you know that this one will be 2500, your next instruction. Okay, support of modular programming, so you can combine many libraries into one later on. Okay, you debug first the library, optimize, and then you can combine from multiple libraries into one program. Okay, so for example here, the printing function, for example, in PowerPoint, in Word, is almost similar. Okay, because they are using the same similar library, for example. Okay, protection and access control, yeah, this is similar like this one, isolation. Okay, the A cannot access B, B cannot access A, but you also, if allow, then you need to have you need to be able to enable the access on B. Okay, if you allow the sharing. Okay, and then the last one will be long-term storage. Okay, virtual memory is using your memory hard drive. Okay, part of your hard drive is 16 gigabyte. This is 16 gigabyte, for example, out of your 1 terabyte can be allocated as your virtual memory. Okay. Okay, paging, we'll discuss more. Pagings mean you are dividing the memory into page. Okay, like this one, page, similar size, fixed size. Okay, into page. Okay. Then based on this one, and even you don't need to have one big block here. Okay, A. It can be separated. A not in here. This is occupy, for example. Then you can have A1, A2. It doesn't matter. Okay, because you have the lookup table, which is the page table that can relate back the location of on the real memory, physical memory, and the program. Okay. So this is the page. Yeah. So this one, for example. Okay. So it's a program A, it's a program B on hard drive. Okay. It need not be continuous. It can be any location because you have the page table. Okay, for every process, page table A, B, and so on. Okay. Yeah. So yes, the virtual memory addressing need to be supported by the processor. So you have virtual address here. Part of your hard drive will be accessed as the memory, contribute to the memory. Okay. So information protection and security, the issue on authenticity, data integrity, confidentiality, and also availability. Okay. And scheduling, you need to have efficiency, you need to be efficient, fairness, you need to be fair. Unless if you put the higher priority. Okay, so let's me put like this. So how to do? Okay, so for example, let me see Zoom. I need to put on high priority. Okay. Oh, where is it? Yeah. So I forgot which one to use, but you can highlight okay some program to have a higher priority. So that means the fairness is there, but you get the high priority treatments. Okay, and differential responsiveness. Okay, this is the key elements of an operating system for multi-programming. What is multi-programming? You are able to run multiple program at one time. Okay, of course you need to have here the interrupt handler. Okay, so because when you are doing the IO, then it go to the interrupt. Okay, and then you have also the long-term queue, short-term queue, IO queues. Okay, so this is when the program run just load into the just double click, then go to long-term queue, and then it move to short-term queue. Okay, then the short-term queue is selection of the which process will be run on the processor next. Okay. Okay, we move on to another learning outcome, number 4, I think. So the demands on operating system requires a new ways of organizing the OS. So we have different approach. The first one is microkernel architecture. Okay, so microkernels mean you try to minimize versus monolithic. Okay, versus monolithic in which you put there on one big program. Okay, this one will have some small program. Okay, so that's why when one is failed, and you can rerun the other one. Okay, and multi-threading, the ability to run 2 threads at the same time. Okay, and symmetric multiprocessor. So if you have 2 processor or multi-cores as well, okay, then you can also take benefit of the multi-cores. And distributed operating systems and object-oriented design. Okay, so this is the difference between microkernel architecture. So for example, you have essential function, but address space, IPC, and basic scheduling, but you have some kind of redundancy. Okay, so that's why in the, for example, in nuclear OS, normally they go to microkernel because you can have 2. What you call the Minix? Okay, the Minix operating system. They are using microkernel architecture, and they have two things here. Okay, address space, to address space, to IPC, to basic scheduling. Okay, so and both are functioning. Okay, so they'll have a checking there, the checking function here, checking service. It will check whether it's running or not. If it is not running, and you can kill this one and can switch to here. Okay, then it can handle from here, can handle, and can reboot this one. Okay, restart this one, this surface only. Okay, and vice versa. And this is important. For example, if you are using in a nuclear reactor, you don't want to shut down the system or reboot the system because it will interrupt some process, some important and critical process. Okay, so here you can have selective communication, and you can add some selective termination, and you can restart. Okay, and you have some kind of redundancies. Okay, on your microkernel. So simplify implementations, provide flexibility, and is well suited to a distributed environment. Okay, the next one is we are discuss more on chapter 4. So you have the process here, you allocate the process, okay, And then from process, you have the this process control blocks, and this is thread, this is this is program, this is data. Okay, and then you can create within the process here. Okay, you have thread control blocks, you have your own program, you have data, thread control blocks, program, and data. Okay, so it occupies the same of memory. So if you have A and create two threads, okay, it will try to divide this one, program and data here, okay, or on the process A. So this is process A, for example. Okay, so it can execute simultaneously. So for example, while I'm editing Microsoft Word, the spell checker will check, the spell checker thread will check the what you call the sentences. Okay. Okay, so this is, as I mentioned, this is semantic multiprocessing. So normally on the server, also you have two sockets for the CPU, so you can put identical CPU, not necessarily the same, but identical CPU here. Intel i9, Intel i9, Intel i7, Intel i7, for example, Ryzen 7, Ryzen 7, and so on. Okay. So multiprocessor are transparent to the user because they access the same memory and I/O facility. So you have here core, so this is processor number 1, processor number 2. So you have here access the same memory. Okay, this is interconnection, for example, and you have the same I/O, access to the same I/O. Okay, the difference between multi-core and multiprocessor, as I mentioned earlier. So on multi-core, normally you have level 3 cache. So core number 1, level 1 2 cache, level 2 3 cache, and level 3 is combining all. Okay, so C2 and level 1 cache, level 2 cache, and level 3 cache. Then you connect to the memory here. Okay. Okay, the advantage of SMP, the performance, because more than one process can be running simultaneously on a different processor. Okay, not on the core, but it's on different processor. And availability, because failure of single process does not halt the system. You can, if the OS is intelligent enough, they can, if one is failed, for example, this one is failed, so don't use this one. Okay, you use the other process. Okay, although with the reduced capability, reduced speed, and so on, because you have previously you have two processor, now you have only one processor, for example. Okay, incremental growth, so you can add more processor as it requires. So you have more user coming in to your website, you can add more processors, and scaling. Okay, we can scale the performance. Okay, so yeah, so the difference between multi-programming and multiprocessing. So this is multi-programming, means many program, but still this one only can do interleaving. Okay, and this one can do overlapping. Okay, so this is, for example, interleaving from multi-programming one processor, means that you can run multi-program, but only you have one processor. So you need to take turn, process 1, process 2, go back to process 1, process 3, and continue process 2, process 1. Okay, for example, this is doing I/O. Okay, but if you have two process, I think this one two processor, so this one will be on CPU number 1, this one will be on CPU number 2. You can see from here. Okay, so 1, then switch again, process 2, switch to process 3, then finish, switch to process 2. Okay, so this is the difference. Whenever you have multi-cores, then not only you can do interleaving, but you can do also overlapping. Okay. Yeah, so distributed operating system provide the list of single main memory space. So if you have cluster computing, for example, you can install Mosaic, for example, that it can behave like this is one big OS. Okay, and object-oriented design also has been used to implement a complex function. Okay, the last one on this chapter is on fault tolerance. Okay. It refers to the ability of system or components to continue normal operation despite the presence of hardware or software faults. Okay, so typically you have some degree of redundancies. Okay, so for example, you have, for example, Arduino. Okay, you want to measure the temperature. Okay, temperature, then humidity, for example. Okay, and light sensor. Okay. But across these three sensors, for example, your control system is highly dependent on temperature, for example. Okay, so you don't want to mess up with the temperature. So what you can do, you can have Arduino here. Instead of one sensor, you can have two sensor. Okay, maybe you can place nearby, okay, nearby the one that you want to measure. Okay, so then you can compare the reading on sensor number 1 and sensor number 2. Is it the same? Is it too much different? If you have too big delta, then there's some error in your program, so you can introduce some redundancy. Means that maybe you can stop the system, alert the owner, and so on. Okay, but you need to do, you can do something. Okay, suppose that you only have one sensor, so you cannot verify, you cannot compare. There is no redundancy there. Okay, so if this one tell this is 30 degree, then you will believe that this is 30 degree. Okay, when you say that this is 40 degree, you will believe that this is 40 degree, although this is 30 degree, for example, because of the sensor error. Okay, so and also if you remember the Boeing 737 Max, okay, you have the angle sensor on the wing. Okay, one here and one here. Okay, but the programmer doesn't use both, they use one. So if one is error due to yeah, we have the what you call the cold weather when you're up there, okay, up in the sky, so there is some error here. So the programmers eventually does not read both. Okay, there's no redundancy there, so that it tried to the pilot want to what you call the sensor give reading something like this. Okay, sorry, the sensor give something like this, means that the plane is about to going down, so the pilot need to pull up again. Okay, so and other things, for example, for server, okay, that is very critical. For example, what you have normally, you have two PSU, power supply unit. Okay, so if one is failed and the other can take over, or the other can run, then you can also hot swap, okay, the server here. Okay, or two hard drive. Okay, two hard drive. Okay, two hard drive. So if one is failed, then you can hot swap to the new hard drive. Okay, and normally they have also two socket of the of the processors and so on. Okay, so how to measure the reliability? So the system reliability is defined as RT. Okay, so we have two parameters here: mean time to failures and mean time to repair. Okay, and the availability is defined as the fraction of time the system is available to the system request. Okay, available. The keyword is available. So you have mean time to failure as the up one. Okay, so the availability, yeah, so system reliability, or this is A. Okay, mean time to failure divided by mean time to what you call to failure plus mean time to repair. Okay, mean time to repair. Okay. So let's see, this is, for example, your computer, your service of your computers. See, this is 1, 2, for example, and this is 10, 13, this is like 25, 10, sorry, 25, 28, and 40, for example. Okay, then you can see here MTTF will be 8 plus 12 plus 12. Okay, divide by 3. Okay, MTTR will be this is A1, 1 plus 3 plus 3. Okay, so you have A equal to 32 divided by 32 plus 7. Okay, so you can find out the system stability. Okay, so 32 divided by 39. Okay, so you have 32 divided by 39. So you have 82% availability. Okay, system availability. But you can see this one. Availability of 1, this is continuous. This is very good, continuous. Okay, annual downtime is this annual, okay, yearly, 0 minutes. Fault tolerance system, what does it mean? Is 0.99, so you have 5.9 there. So 5 minutes, maybe just only need to reboot the system one time. Maybe 1 minute reboot, 1 minute reboot, maybe 5 times rebooting. Okay, in 1 year. Fault resilience, you have 4 here, because this is 50 translate into 53 minutes downtime. Okay, and high availability 0.99 is 8.3 hours. Okay, and normal availability is you have 44 to 87 hours. Okay, 2 days, 2 until 4 days. Okay, right. So I'll stop here for the first part. Okay,